AskReddit. People who've gotten their bosses fired. How? He grabbed the back of my neck and said, "If you ever say I'm wrong in front of a customer again, I will beat your ass." I went to the GM and told him, and my supervisor was relieved of his duties about 5 minutes later. How do people think this is okay this day and age? I remember last year I got in an argument with my boss and I was telling my dad about it, and my dad goes, "Next time just stand up, puff your chest out, look down at him and say, what are you going to do about it?" Jesus Christ. Dad, just how out of touch are you? I work in an office. I can't think of a faster way to get fired than to try and physically intimidate my boss. My granddad has this mentality. I told him a supervisor at one of my previous jobs was singling me out because we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. He suggested I book one day off work, wait outside the office and kick his ass in front of all our colleagues to teach him a lesson. I worked in an office. My supervisor was a woman. Thanks, Granddad. Phoned him to tell him I won't be at work for the rest of the week as my mum is terminally ill in hospital. The next day, about 1 hour after she passed away, he phoned and asked why I wasn't at work. I just hung up on him so I wouldn't say anything that would get me in trouble. The next day I sent the area manager a WhatsApp message explaining what he'd be done and attached a video of him breaking the freezer door while having a tantrum, which cost the store nearly $5,000 in lost stock and the repair costs, which he'd told the AM it broke on its own. He got fired that day and I got 2 weeks off with full pay. My manager wanted to prove I'm slacking off so he could write me up, so he watched CCTV footages, then wrote, printed out and signed a detailed 17 pages worth of Word document. What did I do in the past 2 days? With timestamps, like 7:59 arriving, 8:01 speaking with coworker A and B, 8:07 sitting down to my desk, etc. He told me that he's not happy with my work ethics if I won't improve my efficiency. I'm for it. I took the papers and showed to his boss and told her that I'm not happy with my manager's work ethics and his efficiency might be better if he wouldn't watch 17 hours of CCTV footages to spy on an employee. She was terrified. It would have been a rock solid lawsuit for me, but I love my job, and we had to search for a new manager. Also, my salary raised. Our desks were separated by a 5-foot cubicle wall. He was under the mistaken impression that it totally blocked sound. Thus I got to hear all his loud phone conversations, primarily his booty calls, including those with his boss's fiancée. I figured it was none of my business and tried to ignore it. Well, there was a position in another department that I was interested in, and as per procedure I handed in an application to my talkative boss. Didn't hear anything further and followed up a couple of days later, only to be told that something must have happened to the application. Filled out another one and handed it in. As I returned to my desk, I hear the boss on the phone with a friend laughing about how he had just trashed my application again and how he was never going to let go of me. I go to boss's boss and angrily offer my resignation, telling him what I had just overheard, explaining that I was constantly hearing his phone calls like his booty calls, like with and. He got very quiet and told me to go back to my desk and he'll take care of everything. The next day I come in and boss is gone. The day after, I have an interview with the other department, got the position. I tend to avoid office drama, but really, he should have stuck to screwing his boss's fiancée, and not tried to screw me as well. One summer I volunteered to help a conservation society in East Africa. The aim of the project was to educate the local rural population about poaching and to get them to help us stop it from the ground up. Anyway, I was staying with the lead ranger and his family, and on numerous occasions he served us meat that I'm 100% sure was poached. He tried to tell me that it was pork, but it was dark and gamey with lots of small bones. I think that it was small antelope like dik or dika. When I returned to Nairobi, I mentioned to my grandpa, his boss's boss, that we'd eaten some odd meals. He investigated and found out that my boss had a poacher friend who was selling him illegal meat. He was fired. I didn't feel guilty. Poaching is awful. I've told this story a few times before, so I'll keep it short. I didn't get my boss fired, but she blames me. Boss and I didn't get along, but she didn't have the authority to fire me, but she promised her boyfriend my job. So she hires her boyfriend in another position, with the plan they'll drive me to quit, and then she can just promote him to my job. This lasted for about 1 month. She fired him when they broke up. He confessed their scheme to me on his way out. We'd actually become friends at this point, and I tell him he should really tell HR. HR does their investigation. She's fired because sleep with me and I'll give you a job is textbook sexual harassment. And she tells anyone who'll listen that it's all my fault because I didn't quit like I was supposed to. And I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for this meddling employee who didn't quit when I bullied him. Worst Scooby-Doo villain ever. Was her name Karen? That sounds like a Karen thing to do. Not me, but my GF at the time. We were both working at a small burrito chain. She was front of house manager and I was kitchen manager. Above us was one senior manager and then the owner. We did tip pooling based on hours, and the senior manager always told my GF not to count the tips every night, as he divided it up at the end of the week. Well, of course she counted them every night. Turns out the senior manager was stealing almost $500 1 week from employees in tips. And because his previous farm manager never questioned him, it had likely been going on for years. She told the owners and he was gone the next day. 1 week later his wife left him to work party. I had just turned 21 a couple days prior, took a Xanax that morning, and got immediately shizzle-faced at the bar we were having our said party at. I know. I don't remember any of this, but apparently my GM56 was caught by my other co-workers trying to take me to another bar after I got cut off. He was able to talk his way out of it and we went back to the main party. My manager was trying to get me a safe ride home and she turned away for a few minutes cause she was calling her husband to pick me and her up. When she came back I was gone. Everyone was looking for me. They went towards where they knew my GM parked and he was caught carrying me unconscious to his car, like stuffing me into the back seat. He was also drunk and what came out later is that he had pretty much raped another girl that worked at the restaurant 1 year before. I worked in a call center once with a female supervisor. She was a particularly crappy person. Long story short, she hated me because I would refuse to date her. She asked multiple times and multiple times I explained very nicely that I was not interested but were to remain friends. After about the 3rd time she started giving me negative marks for reviews, phone calls and the such. One day she pulled me into the office with another manager and proceeded to write me up for talking on my personal phone during work hours. Mind you, I had not done this. I looked at her and refused to do this, walked out of her office and into the department manager's office. This was my first complaint after about 3 years with this company. I explained the situation and advised what has been transpiring for months now. Apparently someone else had seen this about 1 month ago and had already went to management about what she was doing to me. Within 10 minutes she was pulled into the office and demoted back down to my position but in another department. The thing that sucked is that this department sat directly across from me. Paranoid, sociopath boss wiretapped all internal phone calls and made life miserable for all who worked in that department. After moving over 1,200 miles to the job location, called wife frequently to discuss the job and family progress in moving there. During those calls, I spun a story about how all of his top managers were plotting against him, which enraged him and he took out his anger on them. Eventually they went to the company owner and complained, and he was fired the next day. My first grade teacher slapped me across the face for not memorizing hot cross buns. The slap hurt for sure, but having it done in front of a full class hurt more. I told the principal, we had a sub the rest of the year. Who wouldn't memorize hot cross buns? Check their username. They prefer Danishes who have been visited by Spiffy Hat Doggo. Compliment his hat in the comments or suffer 7 years of stepping in dog poo every time you go outdoors. Please like and subscribe.